I think we tried to stay with the schedule that they normally do. So they were actually on break, so they were doing this as an addition to what they typically do. So we were teaching at the Ganako Secondary School. It was 5 days of teaching, and so we went there, we woke up pretty early, drove there in this packed in vans. We had like 3 vans, packed tight. We started at 8 a.m. We would have our own little meeting beforehand at 7:30 to kind of get things together. I think there's around 115 students. And these students were the best students from the surrounding schools, the surrounding area. So they weren't all students that went to specifically Ganako Secondary School. They were from around the area. One of my students traveled like 2 hours to get to class each day, which is crazy. We had groups of 2 that would teach in the large classroom in the large subject, and so we would run, I was doing accounting and bookkeeping. The one that typically people don't want to do, but I was like, okay, I'm going into finance, it's fine. But we ran a big simulation in the large classroom, kind of similar to what we learned in managerial accounting with the Lego simulation, different like material costs. We used folding paper boats as an example. And once it was in the small classrooms, we had the itinerary that each of us created beforehand, and then we'd teach that however we saw fit. In some classroom sessions, you notice you got a little bit more out of the students than you thought you would. So the big thing is obviously the language barrier. So their first language is Swahili. I used the chalkboard a lot. It was crazy. I felt like a college professor in a sense, where it's, I'm lecturing a little bit and then obviously kind of have to cold call here and there to see what's going on. What they were learning from me, I was learning from them. It was a two-way street in terms of that, where just learning about the issues that they had in their community was just very humbling to me and mind-blowing to think about, like, all right, we have our problems in the US, but it doesn't really compare in a sense to what they're dealing with. The project my students worked on was kind of farming and creating a subscription system for nutritional meals that they could go and use a wagon and they'd grow their own crops and then vegetables particularly, and then go village to village and sell it on a subscription basis. Enough vegetables that they could contribute to the village dinner or for each family. And we realized running the numbers that it was very profitable. So the whole idea that being able to use what I've learned here in entrepreneurship and then kind of teach that to them. There's the saying, you can give somebody fish and they'll eat for a night, but if you teach them to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime. So in that sense, giving them that value of education and how to run a business could help them.